The real purpose of this conversation, Jason, is to get people younger than we are, not just us, but others started investing. And I want to start with you because you've often talked about how you got your daughter started investing. So let me start because I'm hoping for a little bit of a chronological swing to this conversation. So we're going to start with getting young, like really young, like maybe newborn started, and then get through to the Marine Corps grads of our lives. But Jason, did you start with your daughters at age 0, 1, 12? How did it start?
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea. Let's start with a chronology, and no better place than when they're brand new to life, right? And I still remember, pretty well when my kids were born. I have two daughters, 12 and 13 years old now, almost 14, I guess, at this point. And I guess really it all goes back to what the ultimate goal is, because I think even if we're talking about investing for kids, there's still a goal in mind. So whatever your goal is, if we're adults and we're investing, typically that's because we want to fund our retirement. What's the goal for the child? And with a newborn, right when they were born, my wife and I were both on board with making sure we had some way to get some money saved up for them for college down the road. I mean, understanding that that's not getting any cheaper, and also understanding that time really is the investor's biggest friend. So our goal in that regard was to get a nest egg started for higher education when that time comes. And so when they were born, I mean, like right when they were born, David, I think we got their social security numbers like the next day, and I opened up 529 accounts for both girls immediately. And we funded those accounts with just an initial $500 and then set it up so that every month there's an automatic deposit, a very minimal automatic deposit that goes into each 529. It's not something that we even really feel. I know that we're very lucky that my wife and I both have jobs that can help fund that. But the point is that for every month of their lives to this point, and until they reach college age, they're going to have a little monthly deposit that goes in that at 529. And what we've seen over the course of time, 12 and 13 years, it's pretty amazing what just a little bit every month can do. And we talk a lot about that magic of compound annual growth. And it really is magic. And the longer it goes, the more magical it seems. So for our purposes there with newborns, the goal was to fund higher education. That's how we got them started.
That's great, Jason. And so that goal orientation and really starting as early as possible, you got a great head start on their behalf when they were born. It's interesting because we all have probably different approaches, and that's part of what we're going to reflect. We're going to reflect some motley to what we're doing. But for us, also with kids, I just started them with just custodial accounts. So it wasn't toward 529. And I have to say, in some sloppy ways, I'm sorry to say, we never really did 529 plans in our family. Both of these are definitely ways to save for kids and get them started investing. And I know a lot of your journey and your story, Jason, we'll get there a little later, are what to say to kids once they're of age. Like the conversations we have, the culture that we create around our families. But Naima Barnes, you're part of our conversation today. You have a deeper understanding of these kinds of types of accounts and some of the reasons behind them. And so I wanted to turn to you next and just ask you to introduce yourself briefly. And then let's get some of the nuts and bolts there of how to actually get kids started investing when they're too young to even know themselves.
Sure. My name is Naima. I work in Motley Fool Wealth Management as a paraplanner. So there's two main types of custodial accounts. Both came from different laws that were put in place a while ago. One is the Uniform Transfer to Minors Act, also known as the UTMA. The other is the Uniform Gift to Minors Act, also known as the UGMA.
So I think I did a UGMA, an UGMA. I think I did. But this is, sometimes people think that, well, surely David Gardner or Tom Gardner, the co-founders of Motley Fool, would know everything about money. But the truth is, I hope Tom and I are constantly letting people know we don't know that much. And so this is something where I didn't even realize that. What's the difference between those two things?
So the difference is that with one of the accounts, I think it is the UGMA, if I'm not mistaken, you can put real estate in there. I'm looking at Bro.
Wow.
To confirm.
Yes. And so this is Robert Brokamp of the Motley Fool Answers podcast and the Early Retirement and Total Income Services. And it really depends on which state you're in, which determines which one you will be opening up. So a lot of custodial, the basic point is that minors can't own investment accounts. So it has to be a custodial account with an adult's name on it. And that your state will determine which one you open up.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, grandma or grandpa or a guardian or a parent, they're going to open that account for their newborn or anyone up to the age of majority, which depending on your state could be 18, 19, or if they're in college, 24. And then they'll be able to purchase, if they please, individual stock or real estate inside stock bonds inside of those accounts or real estate. Instead of with a 529, normally you're utilizing funds that the 529 custodian is going to say is available.
So 529 plans are directed toward an educational outcome, as Jason was mentioning earlier. So we covered UTMA, UGMA, 529. Are there other accounts that we should be thinking about as parents or mentors, or does that pretty much capture it?
Those are the big ones. There's also the ability that a parent can open a Roth IRA for a child, but that is if you have earned income. So if your child has a summer job and they make the IRA limit amount, which will vary on the year, then they can contribute that much for them. Or you can also use a Coverdell account, which with those, usually the maximum that you can contribute is lower than that of a 529 or a UGMA, UTMA, which for those is going to be the gifting maximum, which varies upon the year.
So, Naima, I'm hearing you describe these different accounts, and I'm trying to put myself constantly in the seat of our listener. We've done a good job kind of talking about the possibilities. How do you actually open one of these?
Sure. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different custodians that you can use. You can go to places like Charles Schwab or Fidelity. You can also look at online brokers that are strictly online, like E-Trade and Ally Invest. Unfortunately, Robinhood is really popular, but Robinhood at this time doesn't offer accounts that are custodial accounts. They only offer individual accounts.
Okay.
But I did find out that Stash, which is another app that you can use, they do offer custodial accounts. So that's really cool, where you can begin saving for a child on their online platform.
As you listen to all this, you might be wondering, which one do you choose? And I would say it starts a little bit with what's the goal of the money, right? So if you want to teach your kid about investing while also saving for college, 529, the Coverdell are the way to go. The big difference there is the Coverdell, you can buy individual stocks. 529, you can't. So I think that would influence it. But if you are trying to get your kids started with a nest egg that they can control for years and years, decades and decades, then I would look at the custodial or the Roth. Roth is better if they have the earned income. We opened the Roth for my teenage son after he started lifeguarding. But if they don't have earned income, you got to go with the custodial. The only main the drawback to that is once they reach the age of majority, it's their money.
Yeah, so they can go out and buy a sports car.
They can do whatever they want with it. And from a financial aid perspective, if you're looking that far down the road for college, having money in a Coverdell or a 529 is better than in the custodial account. So if that's something you want to factor into that as well. But if you're looking to really get the kids started and have them take over the portfolio someday, I would say the custodial or the IRA is the way to go.
So that's really interesting. And each of us can think back to when we did start investing, as I asked at the top of the show, some of us as adults, some of us as kids. For me, I'll say that I had a dad who did the Uniform Gift to Minors Act account. So we were trusted with the money that was invested for us, and I'm really grateful because in some ways it became the seed capital for the Motley Fool. So I'm deeply grateful for that. I will say I did buy a sports car. Sports cars were cheaper back then, you know? Sports cars were much cheaper. And also, humble brag here, I had a full scholarship to college, so my dad was kind of happy and was probably okay with me spending some of that on a car. But it's true. Before we move into kind of the middle years where we're talking to kids where they can understand and respond back and what should we say and how do we train them, you do, just to double underline, you do want to think about, play it forward, what's the right cultural answer, not for our culture, but for your culture, your family. So for our family, we raise them in an environment of trust, which may sound very wholesome. It hurts a lot sometimes. It's not always right for everybody. It was right for me as a kid, and then it's what I did for our kids. So I also had them with the UGMA account, which we could add to, and it could be stocks and all the way through. But the wills and estates guy that we consulted with 10 years ago was saying things like, I'd never do that. I don't trust my kids with anything. Right? So, and indeed, he was probably right? So we all have sort of a different culture that we come from. Some overlap. But so there's a philosophical question. And before we proceed forward into sort of kids who are 8 or 10 or 12, does anybody want to add anything along those lines? Have we really tied a bow on starting newborns? I sure hope we have for our listeners, but anything more to add before we advance?
Just to note, it doesn't have to be a parent that starts a 529 account. For example, I started one for my brother because I wanted to make sure that when he went to college, if he needed a new laptop or, some books, that he would be able to have that.
That is awesome.
That is very thoughtful.
Naima, I needed you as my sister. I mean, I love my sister, but that's really loving.
Now, don't get me wrong. I have 2 other sisters. So
Okay.
they probably will hear this and be not too happy. But
just don't tell them that you were on this Rule Breaker Investing. Just don't tell them.
they also did get scholarships. So
That's pretty great.
Right.
Good for them.
thank you.
All right, so we've talked about types of accounts. We've talked about it's as simple as, well, in Mr. Trapp's case, the man who triggered this podcast, hey, he's got Schwab, so he can just start talking about with his Schwab representative, and surely that will work. But maybe a question to the group here about amounts. Like, can you add on a regular basis? How much should you start it with? Any thoughts from the panel about that?
I'll go back to just the word that I used from the very start in the goal. We were not trying to accomplish, in setting up these 529s, we were not trying to accomplish being able to pay for everything. My wife and I would like our kids to have some skin in the game and figure out a way to get grants or scholarships or work during school.
Scrap.
So yeah, we wanted to have a little ownership there. So the goal wasn't really to fund their entire education. So with that in mind, I mean, $500 just seemed like a reasonable number to get the account open. I don't know why. I just kind of picked it arbitrarily. And then from there, I think that you can set that monthly deposit up to really whatever you're comfortable with, whether it's $10 or $100. I think the key is to just get it going immediately. As we said before, that compound annual growth is just the most phenomenal thing. And the longer you have a chance to let it work for you, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, so I'm Daniel. I'm a financial planner with Motley Fool Wealth Management. We just had a newborn. She's 6 months old.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Thank you. And we also started with a 529 and figured that was the best way to go considering our goals. And we front-loaded it a little bit because we're in a position to do that now and don't know what the future holds for us. And to take advantage of that compounding, we figured we'd put as much as we could in today, knowing that we may have conflicting goals in the future and feeling like we took care of that to start with.
And I'm glad you just jumped in, Daniel. So for our listeners, this is our full panel now. Just to make sure it's clear, Naima Barnes, Daniel Masseca, Robert Brokamp, and Jason Moser joining with me. So we have 5 voices that you're hearing from, 5 different perspectives. And Daniel, congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you get a little bit of paternity leave from the Motley Fool?
Plenty of paternity leave.
I'm glad to hear
More
that.
than I wanted.
I mean, that's a really important thing that we've figured out a few years ago at the Motley Fool. We weren't doing that 25 years ago, but we've definitely been doing that for some years. Robert, you and I, old hands here.
I know.
Do you remember your paternity leave?
I did not.
I don't either.
But we have such a flexible workplace. It worked out okay.
Well, I keep wanting to jump it forward and talk about how to talk with kids about stocks, and we are going to get there. But going back to one more thought here, which is about sort of the goal, as Jason started us off with, I do remember about the Uniform Gift to Minors Act account, the custodial account I was given, that my father, in this case, decided what age I would get that. And that's a choice too, and that's a little bit more about philosophy. And I'll just talk briefly about how I changed it up for my kids. So I received my account at the age of 18. And I'm glad that I got started that young. It was responsibility for me. It wasn't enough that I was going to be retiring, but it was enough that I didn't have to run out and get a job right after college. And I was managing that account during my college days. It was arguably a little distracting. I was not a trader by any stretch of the imagination, so it's not like I was highly distracted. But as I thought about what I wanted to do for my kids, I decided I wanted to make it 21 for them. So I think there are different ages that we can choose for those accounts. And so for me anyway, or for the Gardner kids, when they turn 21, they get theirs. So again, more toward that goal orientation, more toward trying to make the best call for you and your family or your situation, and not expecting a cookie cutter answer from our talented panel. All right, so if there are 3 chapters to this conversation, that's the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 1, getting newborns, getting Daniel's 6-month-old, going on the 529 plan when kids don't even know what you're doing for them. And how do you get that started? And darn it, it's so busy, our lives, especially as young parents, having to do all the other things, that this feels like yet another. But darn it, we hope you'll prioritize that, because when you think backward from the future, this is one of the most important things you can do. It's good to send thank you notes for gifts, baby showers, these kinds of things, but I would suggest that this will stand the test of time in a more powerful way. So we hope with this podcast, you'll start to prioritize that if you weren't already before.